Failure to deliver leads to massive price suppression and destroys the value of the corresponding investments. The lack of enforcement of the settlement rules threatens the transparency and stability of the stock market, and therefore the petitioner requests the full enforcement of Regulation EU number 909/2014. This is a quote from a current petition at EU level, started by Bella. With this, I welcome you to this video in which we report about the CSDR and the related petition. This is my first English language video, and I'm far from being an English expert. I nevertheless hope you understand what it's all about. In this video I translate at least the first part, which contains the explanations to the topic, so that the concern may be clearer for people outside the EU. In the European Union, there are various possibilities for regulating certain matters. We will focus on the Central Securities Depositories Regulation, CSDR. In German we call it Zentralverwahrer, so it's an Verordnung. This is an EU-wide binding legal act from secondary law that must be fully implemented in all member states after it comes into force. The importance and the ranking of such regulations I try to show in this chart. The higher the legal acts are in the pyramid, the more detailed and binding they are. Very simply speaking, they have more or less the character of law. Now that this framework has been roughly mapped out, let's look what is intended to regulate. The CSDR is intended to create uniform standards on the European securities market. It is often said that it will harmonize and unify the market. After the financial crisis of 2008, appropriate lessons were learned and attempts were made to prevent the causes of crisis in the future. This is one of the reasons for the CSDR. The first steps towards its implementation began back in 2014. But what is a Central Securities Depository, CSD, which is the subject of the regulation? The easiest comparison for people outside of Germany is the DTCC or DTC. The DTC is such a CSD. These CSDs can also determine whether all steps have been completed which have to take place after a trade. For example, the so-called settlement of the trade. The settlement is the final fulfillment of the respective transaction. Something has been designed for this, the settlement discipline regime. This brings us closer to the core of the issue. What happens when someone does not adhere to the full settlement of a trade? In other words, what happens if shares are not delivered when a purchase is made? To most of you, I suspect an acronym now comes to mind. FTD, a failure to deliver. In the EU context, they are often called settlement failures. We use the common word FTD for this. If FTDs occur, CSDR imposes so-called penalties after a defined period of time, which is between 4 and 7 days. This measure part of the settlement discipline has already been in force since February the 1st, 2022 and has been applied since then. It states that for each day an FTD persists after the deadline, these penalties become due. They add up and are charged on a monthly basis to the participants responsible for the FTDs. In short, those who do not deliver must pay a penalty. Originally, however, an even more ultimate measure was envisaged in addition: mandatory buy-ins. Here we come full circle to the petition because there are serious efforts on the part of the ECB, among others, not to implement this part of the buy-ins. All equity transactions carried out in the European Union would be affected by this regulation, regardless of where in the world the respective trading partner is located. So, we would be very pleased if you would support us in this matter. Thank you.